Good morning, it is filled to the brim, and it is Thursday, September 15th, and we're talking about the theme single-handed. There are times in our lives when we feel alone, or we have to confront things alone. We don't have maybe a support system to do it, or maybe God is simply calling us to exercise our strength to do something for Him, something that's hard. And we would rather have a group of us doing it, but the Lord's saying, no, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. You know, we talked about David, we talked about Elijah, and how they had to do some things alone. They had to find strength in the Lord alone, because there was part of building spiritual muscle. And today I want to talk about Esther. Esther is an interesting person in Scripture because she was an orphan. So you think about her family of origin and how she had already been, in a sense, abandoned by her parents because they had died. Esther 2:7 says this: Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, which is Esther, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. So she had an interesting foundation of walking in as a young girl, and not only was she orphaned and taken in by her uncle, but she's also in Persia. She's also in the time of captivity, that Israel was in captivity. So she's an orphan girl, a young woman now in this story. So she's very vulnerable, and she's also in a foreign land. And so here she has this situation because the king, if you know the story, King Xerxes, he's upset with his queen Vashti. And what happens is that he starts to look for another queen on purpose to try to teach Vashti a lesson. And he has his people go out and to get all the beautiful young girls. It doesn't say these girls, it's a beauty contest like these girls want to go. He's putting them in his harem. Esther 2:3 says this: let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. In other words, they're going into some level of captivity, whether they're willing to or not. Verse 8, when the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Hegai. Esther also was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hegai, who had charge of the harem. So it doesn't mean she went willingly, but it was part of living in captivity already in this foreign land where the Jews were dwelling. And so this is her situation. Here she was an orphan. Here she's now an adopted daughter of Mordecai. Now she's in the harem. But God has a purpose in this. And the truth is this: she's alone in it. Yes, her uncle cares about her. Yes, he loves her. But he can't do this for her. And he tells her, don't let anyone know that you're a Jew. Verse 10. Esther had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. So in other words, she's alone. She can't even expose who she really is within the harem, within all the other young ladies in a similar situation. She is alone in this foreign land, and now she's being exposed to some people with great authority. There is a huge disparity between her as this orphaned Jew and going to the king. And so she has to actually experience this situation alone and confront the situation alone. Plus, she will have to also confront some other powerful people who are seeking to destroy the Jews. Now she gets chosen. The king finds her the most beautiful and pleasing in verse 17. And so here she's the one, as this young woman, that is propelled to this place of authority. And yet, here she is, alone. Here she is. And God has a purpose for her in this situation. They find out that Haman, this man, is out to kill Mordecai. He's offended by Mordecai. He doesn't like the Jews. He wants to kill Mordecai. There's a lot going on here, but the purpose of Haman was the enemy of the Jews to slaughter these people who were already captive in this land. He wanted to annihilate them. And here Esther finds out about this situation, and her uncle tells her, listen, Esther 4:14. He says, listen, you've got to speak up. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. In your aloneness, God has put you there. No one else can do this, Esther. Only you can do this. I can't do it for you, Esther. You've got to get the boldness. You've got to get the courage. You're supposed to be the mouthpiece. This is your assignment by God. So her uncle confronts her, but he can't do it for her. And so Esther prays about it going before the king, because in that time, in that era, she is not to go before the king without being summoned. It is illegal for her to initiate going before the king. But because of the dire situation that Haman is after, killing and slaughtering not only Mordecai, but the Jews, she is under a time squeeze to go before the king. He hasn't called her for a while. So this is what she says. Esther 4:16 says, when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. In other words, the king could say, listen, you're another rebellious queen, just like Vashti. You're doing your own thing, so I'm going to get rid of you. I'm going to get rid of you in a harsher way than even Vashti, to teach people a lesson. So this is the dangerous situation. It's physically dangerous for her as this young woman, and yet she has to do it alone. But in that, there is a strength that is coming through Esther. There's a strength of character, of godly character. There's a strength of saying, God, you're either with me or I'm going to perish. But not either way, I am going to do what is right. And so she goes to the king. Esther 5:1-2. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. That meant he received her rather than rejecting her. This is key because this opens up the door. She has favor with the king, which causes her to have the ability to save her people. She has a plan. She has a plan to expose Haman, to expose Haman's bad intent, his evil ways, to destroy the Jews. She exposes later that she is also a Jew, and the king sides in with her because she has such great influence with her, because she has found favor with the king for such a time as this. But she had to do it alone. You know, it's interesting because for this young woman, remember, she starts as an orphan and now she's a queen. And not only is she a queen, not just in some sort of like, papier-mâché representation. She is actually a woman as a queen that's functioning in authority to save a people from annihilation. She, in her aloneness, in the fact that she had to step out alone, reveals her power and authority. The power and authority that God brings forth through her life. A lot of times when we have to do things alone, it is the Lord swelling to us, manifesting through us the power and authority that we actually have. Queen Esther is able to confront the enemy and have him destroyed because she is bold and courageous, even though she is alone. She has that word in her, as Joshua 1:9 says, be bold and courageous. Do not be terrified, for I am with you wherever you go. That's what Queen Esther is functioning in, that God is with her even though she's alone. She is able to save people because she's willing to stand alone. I'm going to say this, sometimes we got to stand alone and do it with boldness, because there is an expression, a manifestation of power and authority and favor that God gives us when we do that. Pray about this word. Single-handed. Some things God says you're going to do this single-handed with me. God bless you.